It's a Friday, so that means it's time for another episode of Mighty Ducks Game Changers. This episode was mildly amusing, but overall kind of frustrating, and I'll get into the why of that a little bit later. Let's go ahead and dive into the recap. We get taken straight away to a Mighty Ducks practice. Obviously, their coach is still fuming from that goal that they gave up to the Don't Bothers in the last episode. He's really putting these kids through the paces. We see that Sophie is still not having fun here, and she's really dejected by having to go through all of this. After practice, she has to get on a bus and almost left her. When she sits down, she takes off her coat and reveals that she's wearing her Don't Bothers jersey. She's actually on her way to a second practice for that team. When she gets to that practice, she's obviously very sluggish and tired. She hasn't told her parents that she wants to play for the Don't Bothers yet. So for now, she's trying to go to both practices at the same time. Alex really needs her to get her parents to sign the permission slip so she can officially play for the Don't Bothers. We cut to Nick talking to Winnie again. This is going to be the subplot of the show. Nick is trying to become best friends with Evan, so he wants to invite him to a movie and potentially a sleepover. We cut to Sophie's family celebrating that their son got into Harvard. This is actually a deep dive into how these parents are actually operating. Their son got into Harvard because 5 years ago his parents realized that they're going to need a French horn player. So they made him learn how to play French horn so he could get in on a scholarship. These parents have their children's paths all laid out for them. It's why Sophie plays hockey. They know that that's her way into college. Alex's boss somehow gets lost on their way to dinner. She and her husband drive by Bombay and Alex as they're leaving the Ice Palace. Few jokes in here about how the neighborhood's bad, people getting shot, bottles getting thrown at them as they drive by. Alex's boss actually invites them both to dinner with them since their friends canceled. They take them up on that offer. This is where we learn that the Mighty Ducks hold a skills competitions for the hockey moms. But this year, the team that they had lined up had to back out. So Bombay suggested the Don't Bothers moms participate in this competition. Bombay wants Alex to compete against her boss because her boss actually just speaks down to her. She clearly doesn't respect her at all on a professional or personal level. Sophie forges her parents' signature on the permission slip and she gives it to Alex. We're going to go back to Nick and Evan here. They had a good time at the movie they went to, and so Nick built up the courage to ask Evan to come to a sleepover at his house. Evan agrees. Evan looks up at Coob and sees that Coob is kind of sad. Honestly, this is just the way Coob is. But to try to cheer him up, Evan goes to talk with him. Coob is really down in the dumps about the way he's played. But who could blame him? He's never actually been shown how to play, so I think that's one of the most frustrating parts of this. You have a kid who wants to be able to play better, but nobody is teaching him how. So he just thinks he's a terrible player. And technically he is, but he's never had any actual training. So Evan asks Nick if Coop can join them on the sleepover. Nick reluctantly agrees. We cut to Alex with the rest of the hockey moms. They're all here to introduce themselves. This is one of the major issues that I have with this episode. We learn more about these actual hockey moms than we do about their actual kids in the show. And that doesn't seem like a good recipe to me. By the end of this episode, you will know more about these parents than you do about the kids that are actually on the Don't Bothers team. This doesn't even add anything to the character traits of the children, because honestly, most of them don't even have any character traits. They get pigeonholed into being one thing. Sam has a lot of energy, and that's all we really know about him. I honestly don't even know the names of the two girls that are on the team. That's how little character depth they actually have. I know them as Popular Girl and Weird Girl. I could not tell you what their actual names are, because they don't have any actual characters. They're just there. They're background players. I can name you every kid on the Mighty Ducks teams, all 3 movies. I can even name you kids on other teams from those movies. But Game Changers doesn't really give you any depth to the children that are playing the game. And I think that's where it's missing this. Because that's how you get a new generation of Ducks fans. It's not through their parents, it's not through the love story with Alex and Bombay, it's through the kids. The kids are there as a proxy for maybe something that you can be able to do as a child. Not all of us grew up in a situation where we had the opportunity to play hockey. And so when we watch the Mighty Ducks movies, we can insert ourselves into those situations, as far-fetched and fantasy as it may be. Instead, in Game Changers, we follow around the adults mostly. And I don't think that's a good change. We really, really need more interaction with these kids. By the time this episode is done, we see that these hockey moms get way more training than these kids have had. They can skate, they can shoot. Why can't the kids be taught this by anybody? And I get it, we're building up to Bombay helping them. But this is just flat out silly at this point. Maybe this episode would have been better placed later into the season once these kids actually know how to skate. So let's get to the sleepover. This was actually a solid interaction between all 3 of these kids. So Nick's moms have a policy where they can't have their phones after 10 p.m. Coob obviously can't live without his screen time. So he gets his phone taken away from him and he's devastated. He doesn't know how to live in the outside world. So Evan and Nick concoct a plan where they get Coob's phone back to make him happy. Coob is their teammate and they want to see him happy. So skipping ahead here a little bit, they're able to locate Coob's phone and they concoct a plan to be able to get it back. Nick mentions that his mom loves show tunes. And apparently this is where we're going to see Coob's real talent. Coob has a wonderful singing voice. So he acts as a distraction so Evan can get his phone. So while Coob is singing away, Evan is able to secure Coob's phone. They get back to the room and Coob realizes he only has 1% of battery left. His phone dies on him. Evan consoles him for his loss. They ask him if he wants to go home, and Coob tells him no. That was more fun than he's had in a really long time, and so he agrees to stay. So we see Coob coming out of his shell a little bit, so that's a good sign. Now somebody just needs to teach him how to play hockey, and we should be okay with him. Earlier we see Bombay helping Alex with her slap shot. He's giving her some tips on form, and he's also trying to get her into an angry place. He's talking about her job and how her boss doesn't respect her, and that seems to add some miles per hour to Alex's slap shot. There's a brief moment where Bombay tries to adjust her hips and show her how to stand. Obviously, that's one of those awkward moments where these two are falling in love with each other, and we'll see how that plays out later in the series. Bombay hasn't had much luck with women before. So Sophie is late to the Ducks' mom's practice. She gets there and her dad confronts her about being late. She takes off her jacket, forgetting that she's still wearing her Don't Bother's jersey. They're obviously disgusted by her wearing this jersey and her hanging out with this team. She runs off. She gets back to the Ice Palace, but her parents have already beat her there. Obviously, her parents are very snobby about this situation. They want her playing for the Ducks because the Ducks are winners, and the Don't Bothers are considered losers to them. So somehow, instead of actual parenting going on, this leads to both parties deciding that if the Don't Bothers moms could beat the Mighty Ducks moms in the skills competition, Sophie will play for the Don't Bothers. If they can't, then Sophie will stay on the Ducks. It's pretty contrived and a silly way to go about this. This probably should have been taken a little bit more seriously. I'm okay with her parents making her stay on the Ducks, as long as they make that decision. And if they see that she's really adamant about playing for the Don't Bothers and that would make her the happiest, then maybe they should make that decision too. I don't like that it's going to come down to the skills competition, but that's just me. So we get to the skills competition. The Don't Bothers moms are doing pretty well. And of course they are. We've seen them get trained by Gordon Bombay. He's taught them how to skate, how to shoot, how to puck handle. You know, all the things that the kids have no idea how to do at this point. So we get down to the final event, and of course it's the slap shot competition. Alex's boss puts up a 40 miles per hour shot. In her first two shots, Alex is nowhere near this speed. But Bombay shows her a piece of pecan pie, because after Alex's boss won a big case, they celebrated by having pecan pie flown to them from Georgia, and Alex didn't get any. So that pie represents the anger of her being disrespected at work. So somehow Alex is able to muster up an extra 16 miles per hour from her previous shot attempts, and she beats her boss with a 41 mile per hour slap shot. But after video review, it turns out that Alex's foot was over the line, and so she's disqualified. The Mighty Ducks moms win. So when everybody thought the Don't Bothers won, Sophie was ecstatic. She went to go celebrate with her Don't Bothers teammates, and her father took notice of this. And once the decision was overruled and the Mighty Ducks moms had won, she was devastated, and she walked back to her dad. And her dad took notice of this too. And so once they got home, her dad went ahead and signed the permission slip for Sophie to be able to play for the Don't Bothers. He said he hadn't seen his daughter that happy in a very long time. And that's really sad when you think about it. They've been controlling this poor girl's outcome for her whole life, and she hasn't had many happy moments. But anyway, Sophie is now officially a part of the Don't Bothers. Our final scene is Bombay showing up at Alex and Evan's house. He has a half-eaten pecan pie that he wants to be able to give Alex. She invites him in and they all eat pecan pie together as we pan away. So my thoughts are that it was an okay episode. Again, this series really hasn't gripped me the way that I wanted it to. I think it's missing a lot of key elements here. Again, the hockey moms cannot have more training than the actual kids in this show. I find that really distracting. And it just keeps reminding me that these kids don't know how to play the game of hockey. And I know, we're supposed to wait for Coach Bombay to magically come in and save them. But I don't really like the way they're going about it so far. Anyway, that was my thoughts on Season 1, Episode 4, Hockey Moms. Let me know what you thought about this episode down in the comments below. And if you would like, go check out my review on the previous 3 episodes. If you want to check out the future Mighty Ducks reviews from me, make sure you like and subscribe this video. I hope today is the day that I earn your subscription. Thanks for being a part of my life, and I'll see you next time.